This is my solutions to the 2024 APCSA FRQs. For most of these questions, the hard part is not writing the code itself, it is trying to understand what the dang questions are actually asking. For 1A, you have a bird feeder class and you're trying to simulate a day at the bird feeder with the simulate 1 day method. Simulate 1 day takes in a certain number of birds that will visit the feeder on any given day. To start off with, we're supposed to do something 95% of the time and something else the other 5% of the time. To start to do that, we will have an integer variable called chance, which will equal math.random times 100 plus 1 and cast that entire value to an integer. So chance will now be a number between 1 and 100. On the 95% chance, so if chance is greater than or equal to 1, or chance is less than or equal to 95, you do the following. The number of birds you pass into the function will eat a random number of grams of the food between 10 and 50. So int grams food will equal math.random times 50 minus 10 plus 1 parentheses plus 10, all that casted to an integer. If you want to, you could simplify this math down to math.random times 41 plus 10. On this one given day that you were simulating, the number of birds passed into the function will each eat the number of grams of food we just generated on this previous line. So, current food equals current food minus grams food times the number of birds. Otherwise, on the 5% chance, this means since we've already bounded the 95% chance to be between 1 and 95, all we have to say for this is chance is less than or equal to 100. If this is the case, you just set the current food to 0, because the fat boy bear has eaten all the food. For 1B, you're still in the bird feeder class and you're writing a method to simulate many days at the bird feeder. You are given two parameters of the number of birds that will eat at the feeder each day and the max number of days you are to simulate for. We will have a day count variable that starts at 0. We will also have a loop counter that starts at 0. While the loop counter is less than the numDays parameter, if the current food is greater than 0, Then add 1 to day count. Also inside this if statement, we're going to simulate one more day with the simulate 1 day method. At the end of the loop, we need to remember to increment the loop counter. Finally, outside the loop, we will return the day count. For question 2, you're writing a scoreboard class completely from scratch. The scoreboard keeps information about 2 teams, their names, their scores, and which team is currently active. So to start off with, our member variables, private string T1 name, to represent the name of T1, private string T2 name to represent the name of team 2, private int T1 score to represent the score of team 1, and private in T2 score to represent the score of team 2. Private int active team to determine whether it is team 1 or team 2 that is currently active. Okay, now for the constructor. Public scoreboard. It takes in the 2 team names as parameters, so string T1n and string T2n. It sets up the 2 team names, so T1 name equals T1, n, and T2 name equals T2n. It also sets up the active team to be team 1, so active team equals 1. That's it for the constructor. Next, we have a record play method that returns nothing and takes in a certain number of points. So public void record play with an int parameter called points. If the points parameter is 0, then we just switch the active player. So if points equals 0, if active team equals 1, then active team now equals 2. If active team equals 2, then active team now equals 1. If the points are not 0, then we just add points to the points total of the active team. So if active team equals 1, Then T1 score equals T1 score plus points. If the active team equals 2, then T2 score equals T2 score plus points. That's it for record play. Last, we need to make the getScore method that takes in nothing and returns a string. So public string getScore. The last part of the string is the name of the active team, so we declare a string active team name. Variable. If active team equals 1, then active team name equals T1 name. Else, then active team name equals T2 name. The string we have to return for getScore is the score of team 1 plus a hyphen plus the score of team 2 plus a hyphen plus the name of the active team. That's it for getScore and for question 2. For question 3a, you're working with the word checker class and writing the isWordChain method. You're trying to make sure that for every word in the word list variable that the current word contains the previous word as a substring. There's nothing better than the good old for loop to solve this. For in I equals 1, because you started the second element for this problem, I less than word list dot size I plus plus. Inside the loop, you get a current string variable that is the current element from the word list using the ArrayList get method and I as the current index. You also get a prev string variable that is the previous element from the word list using the ArrayList get method and I minus 1 as the current index. This next line is the line that does most of the work. If cur dot index of prev equals -1, meaning prev occurs nowhere in this current string, then return false. Outside the for loop, but still inside of the function, return true. That is because if you finish the loop, then you never found a failing element, so you return true. For 3b, we are still in the word checker class. We are making the createList method. For this method, we need to make a new array list and add every element that starts with the target string to this new array list, with the catch that you take the target string out of the given string before you add it. So, array list of string new list equals array list of string. Also, we are storing the length of the target string in a len variable. Next, we will do a loop. For int I equals 0, I less than word list dot size I plus plus. We get the current word using the array list get method. If the current word doesn't start with the target string, so if cur dot index of target does not equal 0, then we continue in the for loop. Effectively skipping past this element. Then, outside this if statement, meaning the current word does start with the target string, we add the current word, but a substring of the current word that starts at the len of the target string and goes to the end. So, new list dot add cur dot substring of len. At the end of all of this, we return new list. For 4a, we are in the grid path class. We have to write the getNextLocation method. We are dealing with a two-dimensional array called grid, and the next location is either one down, so one plus row down, or one to the right, meaning plus one column over. Inside this method, we first take care of the boundary conditions. If we are all the way on the bottom, the next location can only be the neighbor one column over to the right. So, if row equals grid dot length minus 1, return new location of row and col plus 1. If we are all the way to the right, the next location can only be one row down, so else if col equals grid dot length of 0 minus 1, return new location of row plus 1 and column. Now that we have checked that we are not at either boundary condition, we return the next location based on the neighbor of lesser value. If grid of row and column plus 1 is less than grid of row plus 1 and column, then we return a new location of row and column plus 1. Otherwise, we've checked over every other possible condition, should just return a new location of row plus 1 and column. For 4b, we are writing a sum-path method that returns the sum of a path taken from an initial point to the bottom right corner of the grid. We will initialize the total variable in tot equals 0. We will set up a while loop while it is not the case where at the bottom right, so while not row equals grid dot length minus 1 and call equals grid dot length grid of 0 dot length minus 1. We will add to tot the value of the current location. So tot equals tot plus grid of row col. Then we will get the next location by do location loc equals new location row col. Then you set the new row equals loc dot get row and set the new column equals loc dot get col. On the outside of this loop, it means you've reached the bottom right, so you add on the total of the bottom right. Tot equals tot plus grid of row col. Finally, return tot. Like and subscribe to learn more.